So you're now traveling with your
Yeah, day after is the opening.
Meanwhile Elsewhere.
That's right.
Could you tell me a bit about it?
Well, Italo Calvino's book, Invisible Cities, has been a great favorite of mine since I was like 18 years old. Yadavan Chandran is the creative director at Darpana, and he and I have worked together now for 25 years. He set out to be a filmmaker and hasn't made his first film, but has created amazing performances. So he was at home in Kerala, and I was saying, "Oh God, what am I going to do? I don't have a performance." And he has been hearing me talk of this book. And for his birthday, his parents take him to a bookshop, and he opens the door of the bookshop, and there's a display of invisible cities.
Oh, lovely.
So it was like a sign. So he called me and said, "Okay, all right, we'll do it."
Beautiful.
It's like he has been on a trip. It's like he was smoking some pipe and the show happened, because it really is his creation. I'm always there like this for him. But so it's interestingly, it's inspired by, and the names of the cities we go through are also named after Calvino's cities. But you know, Calvino's book is a conversation between Kublai Khan and Marco Polo, and the fact that you are communicating with no language in common to communicate. So for Yadavan, Kublai Khan was like the static, the solid energy that doesn't move, the power, the sort of structures and so on. And you know, I was saying Shiva without Shakti is Shava. So for him, Marco Polo was the kinetic, dynamic energy. So instead of having one Kublai and one Marco, he has four Kublais and four Marcos. And the Kublais are men and the Marcos are all Shakti, feminine energy. So he has taken from it, and each city, I think, is a reflection on our humanist quandary today. Whether it is how do we cope with the world we have destroyed, or it is the oligarchs taking everything over, or it's the intense loneliness in the midst of 5,000 blue ticks, or it is the memories and nostalgia of something we may never have seen. And yet it's an ache inside us that we don't know quite what it is. And something you see suddenly makes you realize. So it's all of that. And you know, we've now done 15 performances in Ahmedabad. And we had students come in, we had discussions after that, because one of the philosophies of Darpana is that the arts have to humanize people. They have to take people back into themselves, back into physical touch, back into humaneness. And we thought this show really would touch people in that sphere. So we were doing a project with one of the Tata trusts called Sula. Sula is conciliation. And meanwhile, Elsewhere talks of refinding from all this wealth and glory and insecurity. What is it that makes us really serene and feel good and feel humane?
Go back to those primal.
Go back away from all this hoopla that we are told is what life is about. And I can't tell you the extraordinary discussions and how children opened up saying, this is the void that we were feeling. And so it's been a journey much deeper for me than a performance. It's a journey because today at the workshop here, I was being asked, what is it that you want to achieve? And I said, if I can make people in the workshop realize that they don't need to wear masks, that they do have the courage to be themselves and to be vulnerable and to be open and to be giving. And these are not weaknesses. I said, you know, then I would have achieved something. So I think Meanwhile Elsewhere is that. Sorry, that was a very long answer.
It's a beautiful introduction to your work. But I want to go back to your childhood, your growing up years. You grew up amid a confluence of many worldviews, the Gandhian ideology, Tagorean aesthetics, and your father's scientific temperament. How was it like to really find your way through all of that? How would that play out in your everyday life? And were you ever cognizant of the fact that yours was a very different kind of a family as a child?
No, I wasn't. And that's why when I see other families, and really when I became a mother and started meeting my children's friends and seeing the very limited worldview that they had, that I really realized. Because I think, I was brought up in an extraordinary school as well. It was the first Montessori school. My grandmother chased Madame Montessori and with her thoughts started a school for the 8 siblings of the Sarabhai family. And one of the siblings, Leena Sarabhai, decided when she became a mother that she would start this kind of a school for everybody, not only for the family. It's called Shreyas and I grew up there. The first music I ever learnt was Rabindra Sangeet. But in our household, one day there was a Nobel scholar, and one day there was the prima ballerina, and one day there was an astronaut. And we as children, my older brother and I, were always encouraged to ask questions and to never be silent. So from the age of 3, I was having, perhaps they could have turned to me, our guests, and said, "Don't be stupid." And Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan was there one day. And, so we were encouraged to take positions that we could argue and never to sit in the on the fence, never to be quiet, and never to be shy of asking questions. And between that and the school, getting into Xavier's College was a major shock, because for the first time I was with 100 children, 15, 16-year-olds, all of them with only one goal: how do we get good grades? What is this word? It is then that this idea of what leads you to being corrupt started in my mind. Didn't find an answer till I was finishing at the Indian Institute of Management and heard a professor from Harvard talking, and I thought, that is the direction that will find me an answer to why do we become corrupt so quickly. So my entire PhD was to get an answer to that question. But so when my kids were growing up, their friends came from very professional, very educated family. And yet to them the biggest question seemed to be this ice cream or this. And my children were brought up in the midst of politics and me fighting for justice and Amma creating pieces about caste and about dowry debts and me dragging the children around the world. And so they were very much within the context of India and the world, and were not living in some Lulu land where these questions didn't exist. So in 2005, I created a piece really to go to schools and colleges. Harsh Bandar's book had just come out called Unheard Voices. And I thought, if my children and that lot are going to be the leaders of India tomorrow, and they know nothing about this country, how do you make them aware? Because they don't all have parents like I had, or like my children have. So we created this performance called Unheard Voices. It was in Hindi and English. And we went to 120 elite schools and colleges across the country to make children aware of what I had gotten so easily and what obviously their parents weren't doing. And that was my attempt to try and translate realpolitik, if you like, so that they became aware that this was what they were facing. They couldn't live in some ivory tower thing, drinking Bisleri water or whatever, and breathing only pure air, because that was not where we were. And this was already 20 years ago, and we are so much worse and so much more isolated. So no, I didn't understand intellectual privilege till much later.
And to grow up with two such influential and strong personalities, how did you find your own voice?
We never felt pressured. There were two people who were so deeply satisfied and building a nation and loving the work they did. it was just seeing everybody around, both in my mother's family and my father's family. And I think both Karthika and I just thought nation building and trying to create an equal, just playing field is what life is about. And as far as my parents were concerned, neither of them were frustrated from what they wanted to do. So as they didn't one of them want us to be a scientist and the other want us to be an artist at all. They just felt that we would find our way.
And to choose dance as your primary medium of expression, that came a bit later.
Much later. The only thing I knew when I was growing up is I don't want to be a dancer. It's too much hard work. I would see Amma go at it, whether she was well or not well, whether she had a septic foot or not. And I said, yaar, humse ye nahi hoga, main to acting karungi.
So how did that choice come about?
Oh, I was going through getting over a engagement and a broken heart, an engagement that I broke because I felt that I was going into a male chauvinist family. A total depression for many months. And a eureka moment one day, I woke up saying, all I want to do is dance. And my father had died at a very young age, as you know, 5 years earlier. And we were pushing my mother to continue dancing. And when this happened to me, it was like a second innings beginning for her. And then for the next 25 years, we danced together. And it was like a whole other unfurling, because when she was creating, she would start something and I knew exactly where she was taking it. It was bizarre because I never thought of myself as a creator, but I thought of myself as the perfect person to take her ideas into the next move.
Why did you not think of yourself as a creator?
I don't know. I think because I had two such immensely creative people as parents, I thought I was the perfect clay. And it was not till after my 5 years playing Draupadi with Peter Brooks, the Mahabharata, and seeing the way women across the world reacted to my interpretation of Draupadi, that I came out in 1990 saying, I can't go back to being somebody who fights for justice and for the voiceless and somebody who is a Bharatnatyam and Kuchipudi dancer. This and all the arts have to be my medium of communication. And I tried to go to various people to talk about what I wanted them to create to me, and I was getting nowhere. And a very dear friend who knew this and who was a director and who knew my work said, you have to birth your own work. And it was very frightening. It was like my trying to say something and my voice getting caught here. And that's how Shakti, the Power of Women, was born. And I realized that I would have to force myself into doing things that I was very frightened of doing. Very, very frightened. And in processes, in creating Shakti, I realized that what was frightening me was my ego. It was my ego that was stopping me from communicating what I really wanted to communicate. So for instance, in my first piece, I was stripping away the musicality of Mirabai and talking about the courage of a 13-year, 14-year-old girl in Rajasthan 500 years ago, a Rajasthan where even today you can be stoned for showing your face as a woman. And I have learned classical music for many years, but was always petrified of singing because I was frightened of judgment. And I sat in front of a mirror and said, this is nonsense. Nobody knows whether Meera sang well or not. We have heard M.S. Subbulakshmi and Lata Mangeshkar, but that's not Meera. Perhaps Meera croaked. So is it that you want to tell Meera's story in your fashion, or that you, Mallika Sarabhai, want to be acknowledged as a great singer? And I went through this process of stripping this down. And that was a major turning point. And ever since that, it doesn't really matter whether people think I'm the best Bharatanatyam dancer or not, or whether I'm the best looking person or not, or any of that, because I have realized that what I want to say is what I want to say. That is what I want to get across. And if I need to be ugly, whatever that term in our society means, so be it. And I think that is what I'm trying to teach these kids or open up for these kids at the workshop, is that try and figure out what it is that is stopping you from voicing what you need to voice. It is the fear of judgment. And judgment, especially in this age of Insta and WhatsApp, can destroy you. You know, regularly I get just so much hate mail, so much hatred, and I try and answer each person.
Oh my God.
And I say to them, okay, I said something, you have called me a bitch and a cunt and all the things that a woman always gets called. Recently, I did something for a new podcast called Kindle, and she was asking me about my life, and I have always tried to be very open and truthful. And I happened to mention that my daughter and I are estranged.
That became a viral.
Viral hatred thing. What kind of a mother is this? She must be a terrible mother. And I've tried to answer each of those to say, and I also got a lot saying, thank God you spoke about it, because I don't speak to my mother and I can't break through, or I don't speak to my son and he can't break through. So I got both. But I have always believed that unless I make myself completely honest with the public, I have no right to point fingers and say that is wrong or that is inhuman. Because unless I make myself completely vulnerable, what right do I have of criticizing somebody else? I am saying these are my faults, these are my issues, and I'm accepting them. These are my faults and I'm trying to deal with them. Then nobody can hold a gun to my head and say, unless you say this, unless you do this, we will bring out the skeletons. Because there aren't any skeletons. I have laid them out. When I first started dancing, I got my first bad review, and it had nothing to do with my dancing. And I got really, really, really upset. And I went crying to Amma and saying, you know, what is this? And they're not talking about Bharatnatyam, and they're talking about all sorts of other rubbish. So Amma said, Mallika, you'll get used to it. So I had this great idea. So I cut out the newspaper, I made a square, I made a paper boat, and I sunk it in my bathtub. And I still sink them in my head. I've never had to physically sink another one. But I think we are so afraid as a society of what the other person says that nobody actually comes to help you when you need help. So how the hell does it matter what they think? They think I'm corny because I wear earrings like that. I wear them because I want to. This is who I am. And I don't want your approval. I don't want to wear a brand because I don't want respect or love from you because I am wearing a brand. This is who I am. Take it or leave it. And I think all my work, all the power of the arts that I have pulled into me is really to say that you know, take off the masks. They only make you unhappy. Learn to be who you are and learn to take that stand. And it's not because I'm Mallika Sarabhai. Listen, I fall down all the time. I get, as I said, hatred. I get called names. I am against the political establishment. I make that very open. There are people gunning at me all the time, every day. But I have to speak my truth. And my work has to speak that truth. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, great. But I have to communicate it. I am a communicator. And I believe we can live in a better world with more justice, more dignity, more love, and less wealth.
No, your work has always spoken about things that might make the audience uncomfortable. So now that you have started responding to hate mails, that is a different level of being empathetic. But have you always looked at the audience who is disinterested or in denial? Have you looked at them with empathy? Have you tried to understand where they are coming from? Or have you been angry at the lack of empathy in the world?
Both. Now, especially in the very hate-filled world and the very either you're with me or you'll be killed kind of world that we in India live in, I try and say to people, listen, in my world, your opinion has a space. It might not be mine. So you must give me the same possibility. That we don't have to agree on everything to say, Do we want a better world, a kinder world? Because all this hatred is only coming because our politicians are stoking up the darkest depths of humanity. All of us have a dark and a light. And I believe that the only purpose we have in life is to try and bring out that light, first in ourselves and then in everything else. And to not shut the door, however much pummeling you get, to try and find one point of agreement. Can we both agree that as daughters, we have had difficult times with parents? Or can we both agree that as vegetarians, we don't like the act of slaughtering animals? Or can we both agree as parents in this school that the teaching is lousy? Can we find one point of agreement? Because that's the start. To say, you're with me or I'll kill you, what is that? And is that really going to take away your innate fears? Is the world going to be safer for you because you've killed off somebody else? Does it make you feel good? Or are you so blinded to yourself that you don't even have the time to ask yourself who you are?
So while you were talking more and more about the things that you really wanted to talk about through your dance, how did your relationship with Bharatnatyam as a traditional Indian classical dance form?
What is tradition? What I was doing 30 years ago is considered tradition today. Today there are hundreds of artists who speak when they dance. When I did Shakti, nobody did that. Traditionally in Kuchipudi it used to happen. But by the time I was dancing, it didn't happen. My taking props and so on, 35 years ago, in 1990, was considered radical. My doing Kalaripettu for the first time and taking it as an art form. So whoever said that Bharatanatyam is a tradition that froze? Perhaps 2000 years ago or 1000 years ago, whenever you want to say it, a form of it started, perhaps talking about what was right and wrong through the gods was the most important thing. I love Bharatanatyam. I think it's one of the most powerful ways of communicating. So 15 years ago, my son was sitting in London and doing a performing arts masters, and he wrote to me one day and he said, "Ma, I'm sitting in London. What's the point of my saying, oh Shiva or Brahadishwara temple, why don't you come to me?" So I said, "Revanta, let me write something for you." So I started writing lyrics for Bharatanatyam in the form of a Varnam or a Padam or a Jatiswaram.
That was the starting point.
That was the starting point of my writing for Bharatanatyam. And I would write in English because I don't speak Tamil fluently at all, and I certainly can't write in it. So the first one I wrote was, he was in London, his girlfriend was in Europe, and he was always moaning and saying, she never answers the phone or something. So I wrote a padam to Krishna saying, "Krishna, what can I do? My girlfriend lives across the seas, and whenever I call, I hear an answering machine which says, 'Sorry, I'm busy, I'll call later.' Krishna, when we go out together and we listen to music," and he's giving earplugs to her, "we listen to music together, we feel so close, but she's so far away. Krishna, won't you bring her back to me?" Now, it was constructed in the pure Bharatanatyam fashion. He was still praying to Krishna. But it was today. So the other one I wrote was to Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva Maheshwara. And he starts off by saying, "Brahma, thank you for creating this world. We really appreciate it and we pray to you that this world is the beauteous world. And Vishnu, thank you so much for keeping the world, for keeping the tides flowing in and so on. And we pray to you. But Shiva, we won't pray to you. We won't pray to you because you are no longer the supreme destroyers, we are. We have destroyed the mountains, we have destroyed the seas, we have destroyed humanity. So Shiva, you are no longer the deity." And so many Bharatanatyam dancers are now doing this. They write to me and say, "Can we do this padam?" And I'm saying, yes. I wrote a whole varnam of my conversation to this brass Devi that my Kuchipudi guru gave me when I started dancing professionally. I take her with me everywhere. And I had these long conversations with her, and I turned the conversation into a Varnam, saying, I know you are just a brass murti, but what is it in you that makes me reach into myself? And who are you? And who is the you and who is the me? Am I not part of you? Are you not part of me? These are questions that I actually ask. Philosophically, that's important to me, but she is important to me. So Bharatanatyam can do all of this. I don't feel the same about Kuchipudi. I do not create contemporary work in Kuchipudi. For me, that is not the mother style. Bharatanatyam is. And 2 years ago, I created this show called Past Forward, which was a journey from 12th century Bharatanatyam to my Bharatanatyam today, and how the Nayika's role has changed and where we stopped being, oh Shiva, I long for you, I wait for you, where will you be, how can I suffer without you? And saying, Shiva, I mean, hi, yes, I'm in love with you, but if you don't come, I have found the Ashtanayikas within myself. I have learned that I am the love, I am the longing, and I am the belonging. So where did this shift happen, and how does a form like Bharatanatyam allow it? It allows it because we are Bharatanatyam. And somebody wants to do a stupid pada, stupid to me, on roller skates. Hey, this whole thing of tradition has become a joke today. You know, people protest against some line in some version of the 300 versions of the Ramayana. They've never read any of it. How many people who protect our Bhagavad Gita and my Rama? I mean, if Rama needed your protection, then why is he a god? If he is so weak that you are going to protect him, you are going to protect Krishna, you are going to protect Shiva, who do we think we are? To me, it's such a comical. And to think that our faith is so weak that we feel threatened by somebody putting a glass down this way. So what is tradition? To answer your question. I'm sorry, you're getting me onto my hobby horses and I'm going on.
That's really great. But today, when you look at a very quintessential Bharatanatyam performance,
What is a quintessential? The Bhargam.
without any
Alari Pujatiswaram up to the Tilana.
without any interpretation, that is still, talking about Shiva being the lover and nothing else. Does that still interest you? Or to put it more broadly, do you still find merit in art for art's sake?
Do I find merit in eating for eating's sake? I think in order for a tree to have the possibility of branching out everywhere, the roots have to be very solid. Before I write a novel or a poem in English and break grammar, I have to know the grammar. You can't take a shortcut and do what Hindi films do, go he, and say that's Bharatanatyam. Break it, but convince me why you are breaking it. I will convince you of every single thing because I have actually thought it through. And if somebody were to challenge me, I would do a full pakka 2-hour Bharatanatyam traditional performance. I can do it even today. Then I have given myself the license to have learnt the entire grammar, to have imbibed it in every cell, and then to change it because my circumstances are different, because I want to make a difference. But this shortcut answer, in Gujarati, tarat means turant. So I often say that Bharatanatyam has become Taratanatyam. If you give 1 lakh, you can do it in 2 months. If you give 5 lakhs in 10 days, you can go do your Arangetram. Okay, there are buyers for it. There will always be sellers for it. It bores me to death to have to watch performances like that. But unless they get there, unless they do their 7 years or whatever it is of training, I mean, how can you do a PhD without ever having done an SSC? It's boring as hell to have to look at SSC papers, but you still have to do it.
How do you choose your subjects? Like, what is the trigger that
They choose me. I look at something in the newspaper, I look out of the car window and I see something, I see somebody being cruel to another human being. I listen to a piece of music and it triggers thoughts. I never say, okay, this year the grants are coming for green environment, so let me go and do something about green environment. That's not how I work. I really don't work very well with commissioned projects because they haven't come out of a pulverizing need in me. If that commission project happens to match a pulverizing need, that's wonderful, but in most cases it doesn't happen. But I also like the sheer energy of the form. So for me, without anything else, the sheer grit of Pandanallur Bharatnatyam that Amma has taught us, the sheer exaltation of the body is also as much a nasha. Not that I will stay with it, but I have created pieces like that, which is just sheer ecstasy of the possibility of the body in movement, in motion, in rhythm. So that's also there. That need is also there.
How has your relationship with your body evolved over the years? You know your body as a site of memory.
As the site, as my only temple. I used to be bulimic before the word was coined. I've written a book about all these crazy experiences. Then I was diagnosed to have a pituitary tumor before endocrinology was really a serious science. I have starved myself. I have lived on 1 glass of Complan a day. I have done every horrible thing that somebody who looked at magazines, had a very slender and very beautiful mother, who ate all the things that we think are rubbish today, white bread, white sugar, white everything. And a very, very concerned father who was very concerned on being fit and would do Surya Namaskars and drink lots of water and all of that. So everything that I do correctly, food-wise and exercise-wise, comes from my father, not from my mother. My mother really did everything wrong and danced 8 hours. So I suppose that washed away everything. But I have put my body through hell. And then once I started dancing professionally, I understood that this is a miracle. And I talk to my body. And I listen to my body. If I suddenly, I who do not like sweets, suddenly have a craving, I understand that my body is telling me that I need something sweet. If I, who love going down and playing ball with my balls up and down the amphitheater thing and want to do yoga and all of that, if I wake up, I understand that my body is telling me something. If there is one miracle in the world that for me is a miracle every day, it's the way our body is. If you begin to think of what we do, how can you not make this your friend? How can you make it your dustbin? How can you, I mean, just how can you? It is a miracle. For me, as a dancer, it's something that I hold dear, I nourish, I cherish, and I talk to. And because I've been through all these crazinesses, I try and talk to young people to tell them to jump that phase and to become aware that your body can be your best friend and should be your best friend.
Do tell me about your experiences of working in films and why that was not pursued more actively.
I was a very lazy child, physically extremely lazy.
You mentioned that twice now.
Yeah, I really was. I would much rather, people were out there playing God knows what, and I would be curled up reading a book. And then when I started becoming aware through Papa about the need for physicality and so on, I started playing badminton, but I still thought dancing is a bit too much. But I loved being on stage, and I loved being in the limelight. So at the age of 15, I was in Mumbai on a summer vacation, and Narayan Menon, who was one of the first directors of the NCPA, his wife Rekha Menon was a classmate of Amma's from Shantiniketan. And so we were with Rekha Ben. Rekha Ben used to run a boutique, and I was sort of shopping, and clothes part, and somebody looks at me, a man, and says, "Would you like to be in my film?" Never thought of being in films, always stage. That's how my film career started. I did 3 films while I was studying, 2 with Prabhat Mukherjee, none of which got released because they were all nouveau film before nouveau came. I'm talking of 71, 72, 73. And they all sat in boxes. One of them I got an award for from the critics, but they never got released. And I got so pissed off. I thought, I mean, you can paint and not have an audience, but how can you do a film and not have an audience? So Satyadev Dubey, the great theatre director, was a dear friend. Saeed Mirza and these people were much older, but very dear friends, taking this little girl along, and Satyadev, I said, enough films. I'm going to the IIM, khatam. So Satyadev said, no, you have to do one commercial film. You can't not do one commercial. So I said, kahan commercial film? Main to IIM mein padh rahi hu. So he said, no. Sunil Dutt is doing this film called Himalaya Se Uncha. And now Sunil Dutt and Nargis knew Papa and Amma very well. So I said, nahi yaar, kahan? He said, Mallika, you can't quit. You have to do one commercial film at least before you say no. So I got into Himalaya Se Uncha. It was the worst experience of my life. All around me were predatory men. We were shooting in Kashmir. They'd try and make a pass at me. I wouldn't. They would purposely punish me by leaving me behind up in the mountains in a little cabin, changing my clothes. I would come out and the unit had gone. And I sat 8 hours waiting for somebody from the unit to come back to fetch me. And I got a rheumatic heart. And I came back to Ahmedabad and the doctor said, you can't go up to the heights again, not till this gets sorted out. I was in my summer of the first year of IIM. And the stories that were spread about me. Finally, we finished the film. Prakash Mehra was the producer. One of his chelas was a very bad director. And when Dutt Sahab was showing the film to the distributors, they said, but you look like her grandfather. So all my scenes were chopped. The film made no sense. So I said to my friends, if you go to see this film, don't blink even once because you'll miss my scene. So then I said to Satyadev, this is it. He said, no, this was a very bad experience. You have to do one more. So I was cast in Hera Fairy. Amitabh Bachchan, Vinod Khanna, Zenat and me. And Bandra's high-rise buildings were just being built then. And Vinod and I were doing a song sequence on the 10th floor of a under construction building. And we were doing a song and there was this toad of a man sitting on a chair. He was supposed to be the dance director. And we were doing this song and, nahi, fir se karo. Nahi, fir se karo. Nahi, fir se karo. After the 10th take, I went to him and I said, I'm lip perfect. My tala is perfect. Why are you fir se karoing? He said, Are bitiya chhati ka dance karke dikha. I picked up the chair next to him, broke it on his head and walked out of the industry. Happened to be that Gujarat industry was just waking up and I was immediately offered the role in a very famous play called Maina Gurjari. And it's a play that I had grown up watching and I couldn't say no. By that time I had fallen in love with the medium of cinema. So then started my stint in Gujarati cinema, which went on for, I did 20 odd films and they became worse and worse and worse and worse. And finally I said, yahan kuch bhi nahi hoga, and quit. I still love cinema. I would still love to get roles. I would still love to be able to do either a web series or a movie which had a role worth doing. So that's an unfulfilled wish in my head.
I hope it comes true because we would love to watch it.
And that's why several years later to do Shisha and then to do Katha, one with Basuda, one with Sai, was great fun because there were very different kinds of units. But then I was going off to do the Mahabharata. The next 5 years I wasn't around. That was my love affair with film.
You grew up in a family of nation builders and those were hopeful times. Now when you personally engage with the idea of the nation or of being a nationalist, how do you do that?
I try very hard not to get hopeless. Luckily, I have colleagues and I have somewhere a subconscious that's very strong. And as I said, people are gunning at me all the time. Establishment is gunning at me. But if through your podcast, I can make 5 people look at life differently, think differently, look at their own prejudices differently, then I'm getting somewhere.
Okay, last question. What keeps you going? What keeps you want to wake up every day and learn and create some more?
The belief that humanity can be humane and that each of us has the ability to bring a fragrance into somebody's life every single day. A smile on somebody's face, a lifting of a little weight from the shoulders. And that's the only reason life is life.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Always in love with all that you do and all that you stand for.
Thank you very much.